The room was heavy with tension, the kind that clung to skin like summer humidity. Amara sat in the back corner of the lawyer's office, her hands clenched tightly in her lap. Her mother's lips were pressed into a thin, unreadable line, and her father kept clearing his throat like he was preparing for a battle. Jasmine, her younger sister, scrolled on her phone like she was bored, not grieving. When Mr. Halvorsen, Grandma Ruth's longtime lawyer, opened the file, Amara held her breath. She didn't expect anything major. Maybe a piece of jewelry, a family photo, a handwritten note. Grandma Ruth had always made her feel seen. But this was a room full of people who preferred to pretend she was invisible. And finally, Mr. Halvorsen said, glancing up over his glasses, "The house located at 80 to Willow Lane shall be left to Amara Thompson." Silence. Emma's head snapped up. "What?" her mother barked. Jasmine looked up for the first time, wide-eyed. "That must be a mistake," her father added sharply. "You mean Jasmine?" Ruth practically raised her. Emma's chest tightened. That was a lie, and they all knew it. "I'm reading directly from the notarized will," Mr. Halvorsen replied calmly. Mrs. Ruth Thompson was very clear. "The house is to go to Amara." Jasmine scoffed, standing abruptly. "This is ridiculous. She never even liked you." Amara blinked, stunned by the venom in her voice. As the room descended into chaos, voices rising, accusations flying, Amara sat frozen. The house on Willow Lane wasn't just a property. It was the one place where she had always felt loved, understood, and safe. And now, it was hers. But deep down, she knew this wasn't a gift. It was the beginning of war. The knock on Amara's apartment door came just as she was finishing a bowl of leftover pasta. She wiped her hands on a napkin and opened the door, only to find her mother standing there, arms crossed, with a tight smile stretched across her face. "Mom, we need to talk," her mother said, brushing past her and stepping inside, like she still owned every space Amara occupied. Amara closed the door slowly, her chest tightened. Her mother wasted no time. "About the will. You know your grandmother was old and confused. She must have meant to leave the house to Jasmine. That place was never meant for you." Amara swallowed the lump forming in her throat. She was clear. "Mom," the lawyer said it. "She wrote my name. She was probably just trying to be nice, because you helped her with her meds and drove her to appointments." Her mother replied, waving it off. "But we all know Jasmine was her favorite." "No," Amara said quietly but firmly. "She chose me because I was there, not just for errands. I listened. I took care of her." Her mother's eyes flashed. "Don't be selfish. Jasmine needs that house. She's going through a lot." "So am I," Amara replied, her voice cracking. "But none of you ever asked." Her mother scoffed. "If you had any decency, you'd give Jasmine the house." Amara stood taller. "I'm not giving it up." Her mother's face twisted with disappointment. "No." Disgusted, and she turned to leave. "Don't come crying to us when you regret this," she snapped. As the door slammed behind her, Amara felt her hands tremble, not from guilt, but from the realization that her family's love had always been conditional, and for once, she was no longer willing to pay the price. The key was heavier than she expected, polished brass with an old-fashioned curve. It looked like something from a vintage storybook. As Amara stepped onto the porch of 80 to Willow Lane, she half expected Grandma Ruth to swing open the door in her faded apron, laughing about the squirrels in the attic or offering her banana bread. But the porch was silent, still. She turned the key and stepped into the house. The smell hit her first, warm cedar and the faint trace of rose oil, just like Grandma. The living room was untouched. The dusty couch still had Grandma's quilt thrown over the back. The wooden rocking chair faced the window, and on the mantel, framed in gold, was a photo of the two of them, Amara at 12, with braces and frizzy braids, beaming next to her grandmother. Her throat tightened. She spent the rest of the afternoon walking from room to room, remembering the way Grandma would hum old jazz tunes while cooking, the shelf full of mystery novels they used to read aloud, the creaky step near the kitchen that squeaked like a warning if you tried to sneak a midnight snack. It was hers now. But as the sun began to set, Amara's peace was shattered by a loud knock. She opened the door to find Jasmine standing, the arms folded, jaw tight, and a man in a button-down behind her. "I brought a real estate agent," Jasmine said coldly. "You going to sign it over?" Amara blinked. "What?" You've had your moment. Now do the right thing. I'm not selling. And I'm definitely not giving it to you. Jasmine's expression hardened. Then you'd better prepare, sis. Because this isn't over. As the agent awkwardly turned away, Amara realized the house wasn't the only thing she'd have to defend. The next few days felt like walking on cracked glass. Amara had barely begun to settle in when the calls started coming in from distant relatives, old neighbors, even church folks she hadn't heard from in years. Each conversation followed the same pattern. Warm pleasantries followed by carefully worded pressure. Jasmine is still your sister, you know? Your grandma would have wanted peace. It's just a house, Amara. But it wasn't just a house. It was the only place that ever felt like home. Tired of the guilt games, Amara drove to the county records office. Something wasn't sitting right. Jasmine had never once helped Grandma Ruth. She'd always been too busy partying, chasing relationships, or conveniently disappearing whenever Ruth needed anything. Why was she suddenly so desperate for the house? In a dusty office with flickering lights, Amara asked to pull up recent property filings and probate documents. That's when she found it. 2 weeks before Grandma Ruth passed, Jasmine had submitted a provisional caretaker agreement, a document stating she had been living with and caring for Ruth for 6 months. It was unsigned, forged, and attached to it was a draft will naming Jasmine as the sole beneficiary. Amara stared at it in disbelief. Was this Jasmine's plan all along? Is this legal? She asked the clerk. Not if it wasn't signed, he replied with a shrug. But people try all kinds of things. As Amara walked out of the records office, heart pounding, one thing was clear: Jasmine hadn't just wanted the house. She had planned to take it. And now that her plan had failed, she was ready to go to war. Amara didn't sleep that night. Her thoughts were a whirlwind of betrayal, disbelief, and something else: anger. Not the simmering kind she'd learned to swallow, but a cold, steady rage that sharpened her focus. She made copies of everything from the county office just in case. By morning, she'd already called a lawyer, Miss Daniels, a sharp-tongued estate attorney. Listened patiently as Amara explained everything: the real will, the forged document, Jasmine's threats. She has no claim, Miss Daniels said. But if she wants to drag it out, she can. People fight over less. Amara sighed. What happens if she takes it to court? Then we fight back. And we win. Later that day, Amara returned to the house to find a box on the porch. No name, no note. Just a shoebox, sealed with black tape. She hesitated, opened it. Inside, torn photos of her and Grandma Ruth, shredded letters, and a burnt corner of the quilt that had always covered the couch. She stumbled back. Jasmine? This wasn't just a property dispute anymore. Amara's phone rang. A block number. She picked up, heart racing. You think you deserve that house? Jasmine's voice hissed through the line. You think you earned her love? She pitied you. That's why she left it to you. But you don't belong there. The line went dead. Amara sank into the porch swing, clutching the phone with trembling hands. This was no longer about inheritance. Jasmine wasn't just bitter. She was dangerous. But Amara wasn't the same quiet girl who used to beg for their approval. They could twist memories and tear up old photos, but they couldn't rewrite the truth. And she would not be bullied out of the only place she ever truly belonged. Amara spent the next day double-locking every door and window. The shoebox had shaken her more than she wanted to admit. Jasmine wasn't just lashing out, she was spiraling. After securing the house, Amara retreated to the attic to sort through some of Grandma's old things. She needed a distraction, something grounding. The attic smelled of old cedar and dust, the floor creaking softly under her weight. She hadn't been up there since she was a child. Piles of boxes surrounded her, labeled in Grandma's familiar looping script family photos, quilts, letters. She reached for the box marked keepsakes and opened it slowly. Inside, tucked between a lace handkerchief and an old music box, was a leather-bound journal, Grandma Ruth's. Amara sat cross-legged and began to read. Page after page revealed the private thoughts of a woman who had been the glue in a crumbling family. Ruth wrote of her heartbreak over her 2 granddaughters. She'd watched them grow apart, helpless against the storm of resentment and favoritism sown by their parents. But one entry, dated just months before her death, froze Amara cold. Jasmine came today, asked about the house. I told her it would go to Amara. She didn't take it well. Said she'd fix it. I worrying she might try something reckless. But my mind is made up. Amara's the only one who ever saw me really saw me. Amara's eyes welled with tears. There it was. Proof not just legal, but emotional. Grandma Ruth had chosen her, not out of pity, but out of love and recognition. She hugged the journal close to her chest, the weight of it both comforting and heavy. Jasmine could burn photos. She could scream lies into voicemails, but she couldn't touch this. Amara had her truth, and now she had her weapon. With Grandma's journal clutched like armor, Amara went to see Miss Daniels the next morning. She slid the book across the polished desk. "You're not going to believe what I found," she said, her voice firm but shaken. Miss Daniels flipped through the pages, skimming. Then she paused. "Is this her handwriting?" Amara nodded. "I've seen it 100 times in birthday cards and notes." "That's hers." The attorney's eyes gleamed. This could bury any narrative Jasmine tries to push. If it ever goes to court, this journal will speak louder than any claim she files. Relief washed over Amara like a summer storm, swift and overwhelming. She wasn't alone in this fight. Grandma Ruth had left more than a house. She'd left the truth. Back home, Amara continued sorting through the attic. She pulled out another box labeled simply letters. Inside were bundles of envelopes tied with twine. Most were addressed to old friends and family, some never opened. But one caught her eye. It had her name on it. Amara carefully untied the twine and opened the envelope, fingers trembling. "My dearest Amara, if you're reading this, I've already gone. I'm sorry I didn't get to say goodbye properly. I know you're probably feeling a mix of grief and guilt. Don't. You gave me more joy in your weekend visits than anyone else ever did. You were always listening, always helping. I'm leaving the house to you. Not because Jasmine doesn't deserve a second chance, but because you never stopped being family, even when they tried to push you out. Love always. Grandma Ruth." Amara wept. The letter never made it into her hands before, but somehow, she received it exactly when she needed it most. Now, there was no room left for doubt. The knock on the door came just after sunset. Amara paused mid-sip of her tea, heart skipping. 3 slow, heavy thuds. She stood, cautious, and peeked through the peephole. "Jasmine?" Her sister stood on the porch with her arms crossed, face set like stone. She wore a tight black jacket and carried nothing but a folded piece of paper in her hand. Amara opened the door halfway. "What do you want?" "We need to talk." "No, you need to leave." Jasmine didn't move. "You think you've won, don't you?" Amara held her ground. "I didn't know it was a game." Jasmine's lip twitched, almost a smirk. "I saw the light in the attic. You found something." "You mean the journal? The letter, the will. Which part exactly are you afraid of?" Jasmine looked away for a second, then shoved the paper toward her. "It's a withdrawal. I'm giving up my claim." Amara blinked. "Why?" Jasmine hesitated. "Because I never wanted the house. I just wanted to feel like Grandma chose me for once. But I guess we both know she didn't." There it was, raw, bitter honesty. Jasmine turned to leave but paused on the last step. "You know what hurts the most," she said without turning back. "She spent her final years with you, and I spent mine chasing people who never stayed." Amara watched her disappear into the dusk. She didn't know if Jasmine's words were genuine or just another performance. But the paper was real and legally binding. Miss Daniels would confirm it. As the door clicked shut behind her, Amara didn't feel triumphant. She felt sad. Sad that 2 sisters had been turned into enemies by years of silence and old wounds. But at least, tonight, the war was over. With Jasmine's claim officially withdrawn and Miss Daniels handling the last of the legal loose ends, Amara finally allowed herself to breathe. It was quiet in the house again, peaceful, and for the first time in weeks, she felt like she belonged not as someone defending her inheritance, but as the rightful keeper of a legacy. Amara spent the following days carefully restoring the house. She polished the old wooden banisters, repainted the kitchen walls in Grandma Ruth's favourite shade of lavender, and even replanted the tiny herb garden her grandmother once tended to with love and patience. Each stroke of the paintbrush, each scrub of the tiles, felt like mending something broken, not just in the home, but in her spirit. One afternoon, she found a box labelled Hope Chest buried deep in the bedroom closet. Inside were old photographs, handwritten recipes, and a baby dress wrapped in tissue paper. A note tucked into the folds read, "For Emma's daughter, if she ever has one. May this house be filled with little footsteps again." Tears pricked her eyes. It wasn't just a house. It was a place of hope, healing, and heritage, a gift. And it had chosen her. She placed the baby dress back with care and sealed the box. Not everything needed to be displayed. Some things were best tucked away until the right time. Later that evening, Amara stood on the front porch, watching the sun dip behind the maple trees. For once, she wasn't anxious about who might show up. She wasn't waiting for permission. She had earned her place here. The house was hers. The peace was hers. And tomorrow? Tomorrow, she would open the doors wide, not to fight, but to live. 6 months later, the house pulsed with laughter, music, and the smell of freshly baked cornbread. Amara stood in the living room, surrounded by neighbours, old friends, and a few co-workers she had come to call family. The home that once echoed with silence now hummed with life. She'd sent out invitations with a simple message. "Come see what Grandma Ruth built." Framed photos of Grandma Ruth lined the hallway, her in her Sunday best, planting tomatoes, dancing barefoot in the kitchen. People smiled as they passed, pausing to share a memory or ask about the woman who had quietly left such a legacy. In the corner of the room sat a surprise guest, Jasmine. She had come unannounced, offering no grand apology, just a plate of peach cobbler and a quiet nod. It was enough. They didn't speak much, but when their eyes met, there was no fire, no frost. Just two sisters standing in a room built on love and time. After the last guest left, Amara walked through each room slowly. Her heart was full, not from winning, not from getting the house, but from surviving, from staying when it was easier to run, from loving a woman who had seen her worth when others didn't. She ended her night in Grandma Ruth's old rocking chair, wrapped in a quilt stitched with patience and prayers. Outside, the porch light glowed softly, as if the house itself was smiling. And in that quiet moment, Amara whispered, "Thank you." Because she knew now, the house hadn't just been given to her. It had been waiting for her. Please like, share with your family and friends, and subscribe to our channel for more stories.